The Galactic Military Academy's combat simulation chamber hummed with energy as another round of tests began. Lieutenant Commander Zeftar watched through the observation deck's reinforced windows, his four eyes tracking the movements of the newest batch of cadets. Most were Korthani like himself, tall, scaled beings with natural agility and tactical instincts honed over millions of years of evolution. A few Valdris students moved with their characteristic grace, their crystalline skin catching the artificial light. Then there was the human. Sarah Chen sat quietly in the corner of the preparation area, adjusting her standard-issue armor with methodical precision. At 5 feet 6 inches, she appeared almost comically small next to her towering classmates. Her brown hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail, and her dark eyes held a calm focus that Zeftar found oddly unsettling. In 3 months at the academy, she had never spoken unless directly addressed, never complained about the physical demands that left even the hardiest Korthani gasping, and never once asked for special accommodations despite being the only member of her species in the program. The humans had only recently joined the Galactic Federation, their planet discovered just 50 standard years ago. Their military contributions were considered negligible, useful perhaps for technical support or logistics, but certainly not for front-line combat. The decision to allow human cadets into the academy had been more political than practical, a gesture of goodwill toward the newest member species. "Attention, cadets," the automated voice announced through the chamber's speakers. "Today's scenario involves a tactical assault on a fortified position. You will be divided into 2 teams. Defenders will have superior positioning and firepower. Attackers must breach the defenses within 30 standard minutes." Zeftar noted with mild interest that Chen had been assigned to the attacking team, a disadvantage that would likely see her eliminated early. The simulation used low-power energy weapons that delivered a painful but harmless shock when they found their target. Pain tolerance varied among species, but humans were known to have relatively low thresholds compared to most Federation races. The scenario began with Chen's team taking cover behind a series of rocky outcroppings. The defensive position loomed ahead, a multi-level structure with overlapping fields of fire and shield generators protecting key access points. Standard tactical doctrine called for a coordinated frontal assault with covering fire, accepting moderate casualties to overwhelm the defenders through superior numbers. Chen, however, seemed to be studying something else entirely. While her teammates discussed assault vectors and firing patterns, she was examining the terrain itself, running her fingers along the simulated rock formations and testing the stability of various surfaces. Her squad leader, a confident young Korthani named Veltar, barely acknowledged her presence as he outlined the attack plan. "The human will provide rear support," Veltar announced dismissively. "Try not to get hit immediately, Chen. We need every weapon firing for at least a few minutes." Chen simply nodded, her expression unchanged. But Zeftar noticed something in her eyes, not hurt or anger at the casual dismissal, but a kind of cold calculation that made his scales prickle with unease. The attack began predictably. Veltar led his squad in a textbook charge, using cover effectively and maintaining good fire discipline. The defenders responded with practiced efficiency, their energy bolts creating a devastating crossfire that quickly eliminated 2 attackers. The simulation was proceeding exactly as expected, except Chen wasn't where she was supposed to be. While the main assault drew the defenders' attention, the human had somehow scaled a nearly vertical rock face that the scenario designers had assumed was impassable. Security cameras tracked her movement as she worked her way around the fortress's blind spot, using handholds that seemed barely adequate to support her weight. Her progress was slow but relentless, and more disturbing still, completely silent. Zeftar found himself leaning forward, his secondary arms gripping the observation rail. In 20 years of running these simulations, he had never seen a cadet attempt such a maneuver. The rock face was treacherous even by Korthani standards, and humans were supposed to be among the less physically capable species in the Federation. Chen reached a ledge just below the fortress's upper level and paused, apparently listening to something the sensors couldn't detect. The main battle continued below, with Veltar's remaining forces trading fire with the defenders in an increasingly desperate situation. Standard protocol would be to call for retreat within the next few minutes. What happened next would be debated in tactical classrooms for years to come. Chen produced what appeared to be a length of rope from her equipment pack, standard issue gear that most cadets ignored in favor of more sophisticated tools. She secured one end to the ledge and began a controlled descent that brought her directly behind the primary defensive position. The defenders, focused on the obvious threat to their front, never thought to check their rear flanks. Her first target never knew what hit him. Chen's training blade found the gap in his armor with surgical precision, delivering the shock that registered as a kill in the simulation's computer. She moved to the next position with fluid grace, her footsteps somehow remaining silent on the metal flooring that should have announced her presence to every defender in the complex. One by one, the defensive positions fell. Chen didn't use the wild, aggressive tactics that most species favored in close combat. Instead, her movements were controlled, economical, almost dancer-like in their precision. She seemed to know exactly where each defender would be before she reached them, as if she could predict their reactions with uncanny accuracy. The simulation ended with Chen standing alone in the fortress's command center, having eliminated the entire defensive team without taking a single hit. Below, Veltar and his surviving squad mates stared up at the human in stunned silence. In the observation deck, Zeftar realized that his mouth was hanging open, an embarrassing display of shock that he quickly corrected. Around him, other instructors were checking and rechecking the simulation data, clearly unable to believe what they had just witnessed. "Run it again," Zeftar ordered quietly. "I want to see the complete tactical analysis." As the holographic replay began, showing Chen's impossible climb and methodical assault in slow motion, one thought kept echoing in the commander's mind. If this was what humans considered an average student, what were their actual warriors capable of? The footage would soon find its way beyond the Academy's walls, transmitted through unofficial channels to military analysts across the galaxy. Within days, every major power in the Federation would be asking the same question that now burned in Zeftar's consciousness. Just what exactly had they welcomed into their alliance? The encrypted data package arrived at Admiral Corinth's private terminal at 0347 hours, Galactic Standard Time. The Zelthrian Admiral had been reviewing supply requisitions for the Third Fleet when the priority alert chimed softly in his darkened office. The sender was listed as Lieutenant Commander, Zeftar from the Military Academy, not someone whose messages typically warranted immediate attention. Corinth's tentacles twitched with mild irritation as he accessed the file. The Academy routinely sent progress reports and training assessments, usually tedious documents filled with predictable statistics about cadet performance. He expected this to be another routine update about some minor incident requiring his administrative attention. The first frame of video footage made him pause. The timestamp indicated a standard combat simulation, but something about the tactical overlay seemed unusual. Corinth's decades of military experience had taught him to recognize patterns, and the attack vectors displayed on his screen violated every conventional assault doctrine he knew. By the time the footage reached Chen's impossible climb, Corinth was fully alert. His primary eyes tracked the human's movement while his secondary pair monitored the tactical display, noting positions and timing with the precision that had made him one of the Federation's most respected strategic commanders. When Chen began her systematic elimination of the defensive positions, Corinth found himself calculating engagement angles and response times with growing amazement. The human moved like liquid death. Each strike was placed with mathematical precision, targeting exactly the right spot to disable her opponents instantly. More importantly, she seemed to anticipate their reactions before they made them, positioning herself to counter movements that hadn't yet begun. It was as if she could see several seconds into the future. Corinth replayed the sequence 3 times before acknowledging what his analytical mind was telling him. This wasn't luck or accident. The human cadet had demonstrated tactical capabilities that exceeded anything in the Federation's combat databases. She had turned a hopeless assault scenario into a flawless victory through methods that shouldn't have been possible. The Admiral's comm system chimed with an incoming priority message. The sender identification made his blood chill. Grand Marshal Thesak of the Hegemony Intelligence Division. Admiral Corinth. The Marshal's voice carried its usual cold authority. "I trust you have reviewed the Academy footage by now. We need to discuss its implications immediately." Corinth's tentacles coiled tightly around his command chair. If Hegemony Intelligence had already obtained the footage, It meant the situation was far more serious than a simple training exercise. The hegemony's spy networks were legendary throughout the galaxy, but their interest in a single human cadet suggested something that made Corinth deeply uncomfortable. Marshal, the footage appears to show exceptional individual performance, but I fail to see why it would concern your department. Because, Admiral, our xenobiological experts have analyzed every frame of that recording. According to our models, what the human accomplished should have been physically impossible for her species. The climb alone required strength-to-weight ratios that exceed human physiological parameters by approximately 40%. The tactical awareness she displayed suggests cognitive processing speeds that rival our most advanced AI systems. Corinth accessed his personal files on human physiology, cross-referencing them with the simulation data. The Marshal was correct. Chen's performance fell well outside the established baselines for human capabilities. Either their initial assessments of human potential had been catastrophically wrong, or something else was happening. Have there been other incidents? Corinth asked carefully. 17 in the past 6 months across multiple Federation training facilities, each involving human cadets performing at levels that should be impossible for their species. The pattern suggests either systematic deception about human capabilities or... The Marshal's voice trailed off meaningfully. Or what, Marshal? Or the humans have been deliberately concealing their true nature since first contact. Consider the implications, Admiral. A species joins the Federation claiming to be peaceful traders and researchers, accepting minor roles in our military structure, while secretly possessing combat capabilities that could threaten the existing power balance. Corinth felt a chill that had nothing to do with his office's environmental controls. The Federation's stability depended on a careful balance of military power among the member species. If humans possessed capabilities far beyond their public assessments, it could destabilize everything they had built over the past millennium. What does intelligence recommend? Immediate investigation of human military capabilities. We need to know what they're hiding and why. The footage from this Chen cadet will be distributed to all department heads within the hour. I want comprehensive analysis from every division. The connection terminated, leaving Corinth alone with troubling thoughts. He accessed the Academy's complete files on Sarah Chen, searching for anything that might explain her exceptional performance. Her background was unremarkable. Born on Earth's North American continent, standard education, no military family history. Her physical assessments were within normal human parameters. Her psychological evaluations showed nothing unusual. Yet the footage didn't lie. Chen had accomplished something that challenged everything they thought they knew about human limitations. Corinth's secondary screen activated, displaying an incoming transmission from the Federation Council chambers. The emergency session indicator was flashing, something that hadn't happened in over 50 standard years. As he watched, representatives from every major species were taking their seats with expressions of concern and confusion. The session began with Grand Chancellor Vextari calling for order with unusual urgency in his voice. Fellow representatives, we convene this emergency session to address intelligence reports regarding our newest Federation members. The evidence suggests that our understanding of human capabilities may have been incomplete. The holoprojector in the center of the chamber activated, displaying the now infamous footage of Chen's simulation performance. Gasps and clicking sounds of shock echoed through the assembly as representatives witnessed the impossible tactical display. This footage was recorded 72 hours ago at the Galactic Military Academy, Chancellor Vextari continued. Our initial analysis suggests that the human cadet's performance exceeds known physiological limitations for her species by significant margins. The implications are troubling. Representative Kraltek of the warrior caste stood with aggressive posture. If the humans have been deceiving us about their military capabilities, this constitutes a violation of the First Contact Accords. Their admission to the Federation was based on false information. We must consider the possibility, interrupted Dr. Shendal from the Science Council, that our initial assessments were simply inadequate. Human physiology may be more adaptable than we realized. Adaptable enough to climb surfaces that would challenge a Korthani warrior? Kraltek's voice carried dangerous undertones. Adaptable enough to demonstrate tactical awareness that rivals our best military AIs? This goes beyond simple misjudgment. As the debate intensified, Corinth found himself studying Chen's footage once more. Something about her expression during the simulation bothered him. A coldness that seemed at odds with humanity's reputation for emotional volatility. It was the look of someone who had done such things before, who found lethal combat as natural as breathing. The question that would soon obsess military analysts throughout the galaxy was becoming clear. If Sarah Chen truly was just another student, what were the humans preparing for? And more terrifyingly, what did they already know that the rest of the galaxy didn't? The human embassy on Confederation Prime hummed with unusual activity as Ambassador Elena Vasquez reviewed the cascade of urgent diplomatic requests flooding her communication systems. In the 48 hours since Chen's simulation footage had leaked beyond the Academy, every major Federation power had demanded immediate meetings to discuss clarifications regarding human military capabilities. Elena rubbed her temples, feeling the familiar tension headache that had become her constant companion since humanity's admission to the Federation. She had spent the last 3 years carefully cultivating an image of humans as peaceful, scientifically minded beings who could contribute to galactic civilization through innovation rather than warfare. Now a single training exercise threatened to unravel everything they had worked to achieve. Her aide, Captain Marcus Rodriguez, entered the office carrying a data pad and wearing the grim expression that had become standard among the embassy staff. "Ma'am, we have 12 more requests for emergency consultations. The hegemony is demanding immediate access to our military academies on Earth. The Zelthrian Fleet Command wants detailed specifications on human physical capabilities, and the Korthani Defense Ministry is threatening to invoke Article 7 of the Federation Charter." Elena's blood chilled. Article 7 allowed for the expulsion of member species who had obtained admission through fraudulent means. "Have we heard from Earth Command? Admiral Chen sends her regards and asks that you maintain current protocols." Marcus paused meaningfully. She also mentioned that Sarah is her niece. The pieces clicked into place with horrifying clarity. Elena had known that some of the human cadets sent to Federation academies came from military families, but she had assumed they were representative of baseline human capabilities. If Sarah Chen was the niece of Admiral Chen, commander of Earth's Special Operations Division, then her performance might reflect training far beyond what the Federation considered normal education. "Captain, I need you to establish a secure channel to Earth immediately. Priority 1 encryption." While Marcus worked to establish the connection, Elena reviewed the diplomatic catastrophe unfolding around them. The Federation had welcomed humanity based on careful assessments of their technology, military strength, and potential contributions. Those assessments had painted humans as a relatively weak species whose value lay in their ingenuity and adaptability rather than combat prowess. If the assessments were wrong, if humans had been deliberately downplaying their capabilities, it would be seen as a massive deception that threatened the careful balance of power that kept the Federation stable. The secure channel activated, revealing the stern features of Admiral Sarah Chen, Sarah's aunt and Elena's counterpart in Earth's military hierarchy. The resemblance between the Admiral and her niece was unmistakable, particularly the same calculating eyes that seemed to see through everything they looked at. "Ambassador Vasquez," Admiral Chen's voice carried no warmth. "I understand we have a situation. Admiral, your niece's performance at the Academy has created a diplomatic crisis. Every major power in the Federation is now questioning our honesty about human capabilities. I need to know, are there more surprises I should be aware of?" Admiral Chen was quiet for a long moment, her expression unreadable. "Elena, when we made first contact with the Federation, humanity faced a choice. We could reveal our true nature and likely find ourselves either conquered or forced into a perpetual arms race. Or we could present ourselves as harmless enough to join the galactic community without threatening the existing order. And you chose deception. We chose survival. Do you know what humans were doing 50 years ago, Ambassador? We were fighting wars across 17 different fronts on our own planet. We had weapons that could crack continents and military doctrines refined through thousands of years of constant warfare. When the Federation scouts arrived, they found a species that had turned conflict into an art form." Elena felt sick. "How much have we hidden?" "Everything that matters. Our actual military strength, our weapons technology, our tactical doctrines, our psychological warfare capabilities. The Federation thinks we're peaceful because that's what we decided they needed to think. But why? Why not join as an equal military power? Admiral Chen's smile was cold as winter steel. Because we studied the Federation's history, Elena. Every time a new species with significant military capabilities joins, the existing powers unite to contain them. The Valdris spent 50 years under economic sanctions. The Korthani faced a naval blockade that lasted a generation. The Federation doesn't welcome military equals. It tolerates them only when it has no choice. The implications crashed over Elena like a tidal wave. So you sent your best and brightest to their academies while pretending they were average students. I sent the children of our military families to learn everything they could about Federation tactics, technology, and strategic thinking. Sarah isn't exceptional by human standards, Ambassador. She's a well-trained teenager from a military family. She would be considered competent but unremarkable at any human war college. Elena's hands were shaking now. How many others are there? Currently, about 300 human cadets spread across Federation military institutions. All from military families, all trained from childhood in combat arts that the Federation has never seen. Each one gathering intelligence while the Federation believes they're doing us a favor by providing education to our promising youth. This is going to destroy everything we've built. When they realize the scope of the deception, they won't, Admiral Chen interrupted firmly, because we're going to control the narrative. Here's what you're going to tell them. Sarah Chen is indeed exceptional, representing the absolute peak of human potential achieved through experimental training programs. You will express shock and concern that our pilot program has created such an individual, and you will offer to suspend the program immediately as a gesture of good faith. Elena understood the strategy immediately. You want them to think she's a one-off anomaly rather than representative of broader capabilities. Exactly. Let them believe that we accidentally created a super soldier and that we're as surprised as they are. Offer complete transparency about the experimental program, while actually showing them carefully prepared false data. They want to see human limitations, so we'll show them limitations, just not the real ones. And the other cadets? Will be instructed to perform at levels more consistent with Federation expectations. Sarah's cover is blown, so she'll be recalled for additional evaluation. The others will fade back into the background, continuing their mission while appearing properly average. Elena realized she was looking at a masterpiece of long-term strategic deception. Humanity had infiltrated the Federation's military institutions, mapped their capabilities, and positioned themselves as harmless allies while building a comprehensive understanding of galactic military doctrine. It was brilliant, terrifying, and absolutely ruthless. Admiral, what happens when they eventually discover the truth? Admiral Chen's expression remained cold. By then, Ambassador, it won't matter. We'll have learned everything we need to know about their strengths, weaknesses, and tactical doctrines. When the time comes for honesty, we'll be ready for any response they might have. As the communication ended, Elena stared at her reflection in the dark screen. She had spent 3 years believing she was helping humanity find its place in a peaceful galactic community. Instead, she had been serving as cover for what might be the most sophisticated intelligence operation in galactic history. The question that terrified her most was simple. If this was how humanity behaved when trying to appear harmless, what would they be like as enemies? Dr. Kethvar had spent 30 years studying alien biology, but the data streaming across his laboratory screens challenged everything he thought he knew about physiological limitations. The Zelthrian scientists' multiple arms worked frantically across different workstations, analyzing tissue samples, bone density scans, and neural mapping data from the human cadet Sarah Chen. The results were impossible. According to his instruments, Chen's muscle fiber density was within normal human parameters. Her bone structure showed standard calcium composition. Her neural pathways displayed typical human electrochemical patterns. Yet the video footage showed her performing feats that should have been beyond the capabilities of those biological systems. Computer, run comparative analysis between subjects' measured capabilities and observed performance. The AI's response was immediate and troubling. Discrepancy detected. Observed performance exceeds predicted capabilities by margins of 37 to 43% across all measured parameters. Recommend verification of data integrity. Kethavar's secondary arms clicked in frustration. He had verified the data 17 times. The biological reality and the recorded performance simply didn't match, which meant either his instruments were malfunctioning or something fundamental about human physiology remained hidden. His laboratory door chimed with an arrival notification. Grand Marshal Thisik entered without waiting for permission, his towering form casting shadows across the workstations. The hegemony's intelligence chief moved with the predatory grace that had made his species the Federation's most feared warriors before they turned to espionage. Doctor, your preliminary report raises disturbing questions. Kethvar's arms trembled slightly, an involuntary response to being in close proximity to a creature that could tear him apart without effort. Marshal, the biological data doesn't support the observed capabilities. Either the human is using enhancement technology we cannot detect, or our understanding of human physiology is fundamentally flawed. Show me. Kethvar activated the holographic display, showing Chen's muscle tissue at the cellular level. These are standard human myofibrils, actin and myosin proteins arranged in conventional patterns. Nothing exceptional about their structure or density. Yet somehow, these muscles generated enough force to support her body weight during that climb, while maintaining fine motor control for combat. The Marshal studied the display with intelligent interest. What about neural enhancement? Could they have modified her nervous system to improve reaction times and tactical processing? I've examined her brain scans exhaustively. Standard human neural architecture, typical neurotransmitter levels, normal synaptic efficiency. If anything, her brain appears slightly less developed than average for her age group. Kethvar paused, realizing how that sounded, which makes her tactical performance even more inexplicable. Doctor, in your professional opinion, could these capabilities be natural for humans? Kethvar's primary arms gestured helplessly, while his secondary pair continued data analysis. Marshal, if these capabilities are natural, then our initial assessment of human biology was not just wrong. It was catastrophically incomplete. The implications would be, explain. Human evolutionary history shows clear signs of extreme environmental pressure. Their planet has experienced multiple extinction events, forcing rapid adaptation. Their nervous systems show redundancies and efficiency patterns that suggest optimization for survival under extreme stress. But we interpreted these as evolutionary artifacts, not active capabilities. The Marshal's expression grew more predatory. Continue. What if we were wrong? What if those adaptations remained functional? Humans might possess latent capabilities that activate under specific conditions: combat stress, life-threatening situations, extreme physical demands. It would explain why our peaceful assessments missed so much. You're suggesting that humans are literally a different species under stress conditions. Kethvar activated another display, showing human physiological responses during various activities. Look at these patterns, Marshal. Human adrenaline responses are unlike anything we've cataloged. Their pain tolerance increases dramatically under stress. Their cognitive processing actually improves during life-threatening situations. Most species show degraded mental function under such conditions. And you believe this explains the Chen incident? I believe we've been studying humans under artificial peaceful conditions that suppressed their natural capabilities. The military academy simulation may have been the first time we observed a human performing under conditions that triggered their evolutionary adaptations. The Marshal was quiet for several minutes, studying the data with the intensity that had made him legendary in intelligence circles. Doctor, if your hypothesis is correct, what would we expect to see from other human cadets under similar stress conditions? Before Kethvar could answer, his communication system activated with an urgent priority alert. The image that appeared showed Commander Vextal from the Korthani War Academy, his scaled features tight with concern. Dr. Kethvar, we have a situation. 3 human cadets at our facility have just completed an advanced survival exercise. The results are unprecedented. Kethvar's blood chilled. What kind of results, Commander? They were dropped into our most challenging survival environment with minimal equipment. Standard protocol calls for extraction after 72 hours if candidates haven't reached the checkpoint. These humans not only reached the checkpoint in 36 hours, they did so while evading hunter-killer drones that have never been successfully avoided by any previous candidates. The Marshal stepped into view of the camera. Commander, describe their condition upon extraction. That's what's most disturbing, Marshal. They showed minimal signs of stress or fatigue. When questioned about their survival methods, they claimed to have used basic techniques taught to all human children. They seemed genuinely confused by our amazement at their performance. Kethvar felt pieces of a terrifying puzzle clicking into place. Commander, did you observe their behavior during the exercise? We have full surveillance recordings. Doctor, they moved through our survival course like predators in their natural habitat. They identified food sources that our sensors classified as inedible, constructed shelter using techniques not found in any Federation database, and demonstrated tracking abilities that allowed them to avoid our drones while simultaneously hunting native wildlife. The communication ended, leaving Kethvar and the Marshal staring at implications that grew more disturbing by the minute. If human cadets were consistently performing beyond assessed capabilities, it suggested a level of deception that went far beyond simple military secrecy. Doctor, the Marshal's voice carried deadly calm. I want comprehensive biological analysis of every human in Federation space. Use every tool at our disposal. If the humans have been hiding their true nature, we need to know exactly what we're dealing with. Kethavar's arms were shaking as he activated his research protocols. Marshal, if my hypothesis is correct, if humans are essentially a dormant warrior species that activates under stress, then we may have invited something into the Federation that we're completely unprepared to handle. Explain. A species that appears peaceful during normal conditions but transforms into apex predators. Under stress would be evolutionarily impossible to detect until it was too late. They would integrate perfectly into peaceful societies while retaining the ability to dominate those societies if circumstances changed. The Marshal's expression grew thoughtful. You're describing the perfect infiltration species, or the perfect survivors. Marshal, what if the humans aren't deceiving us? What if they genuinely don't know their own capabilities because they've never needed to use them? What if we're seeing their true nature emerge for the first time in their modern history? As the implications of that possibility settled over them, both scientist and spy master realized they might be witnessing something unprecedented in galactic history. The awakening of a species that had evolved beyond the normal limitations of biology itself. The question was no longer what the humans were hiding. The question was what they were about to become. The emergency session of the Federation Security Council convened in the deepest levels of Confederation Prime, in chambers designed to contain conversations that could reshape the galaxy. Representatives from every major military power sat around the circular table, their faces bearing expressions ranging from concern to barely controlled fear. Admiral Corinth activated the central holographic display, showing a map of Federation space with highlighted markers indicating human cadet locations. In the past 72 hours, we have documented exceptional performance from human cadets at 17 different military institutions across Federation space. The pattern is consistent and troubling. Chancellor Vextari leaned forward, his ancient features grave. Define exceptional, Admiral. Performance. Levels that exceed established physiological parameters for the human species by margins that suggest either systematic deception or fundamental gaps in our biological understanding. Corinth activated a series of video feeds showing various human cadets in action. Cadet Williams at the Tactical Institute solved a strategic puzzle that has stumped our best military minds for 3 years. He completed it in 17 minutes and described the solution as obvious. The assembled representatives watched in stunned silence as the footage showed a young human casually rearranging holographic battle formations with movements that displayed intuitive understanding of multidimensional warfare. Cadet Rodriguez at the Engineering Academy redesigned our most advanced shield generators to improve efficiency by 30%. When asked how she identified the design flaws, she said she could see the energy flow patterns and that the inefficiencies were visually apparent. Corinth's voice carried increasing tension. Our own engineers spent decades perfecting those designs. Representative Kralthek of the warrior caste stood aggressively. This confirms our suspicions. The humans have infiltrated our military institutions with advanced operatives posing as students. They have been gathering intelligence while we trained them in our most sensitive techniques. There's another possibility, Dr. Shendal interjected from the Science Council. What if these humans genuinely are students, but our assessment of their species was fundamentally incorrect? Explain, Doctor. Shendal activated his own display showing genetic analysis data. We've analyzed tissue samples from 12 human cadets. Their genetic structure contains sequences that appear inactive under normal conditions, but show signs of activation under stress. These sequences control everything from muscle efficiency to neural processing speed to pain tolerance. Grand Marshal Thysak spoke for the first time, his voice carrying the authority of the Federation's most powerful intelligence agency. Doctor, are you suggesting that humans possess dormant capabilities that emerge under specific conditions? I'm suggesting that humans may be the first species we've encountered that evolved active genetic adaptation to environmental pressures. Under normal conditions, they appear to be an average species with typical biological limitations. Under stress, combat pressure, or extreme challenge, different genetic expressions activate that dramatically enhance their capabilities. The implication sent a chill through the assembled representatives. Chancellor Vextari's voice was carefully controlled. If this is accurate, then every assessment we've made of human capabilities has been based on observing them in their dormant state. Worse than that, Admiral Corinth added grimly. We've been training them in our military techniques while they were in an enhanced state that we didn't recognize. They've learned our tactical doctrines, our technological capabilities, and our strategic weaknesses while operating at cognitive levels that may exceed our own. Commander Zethral from the Border Defense Fleet activated another display. There's more. We've been analyzing communication patterns between human cadets across different installations. They're using a form of coded language embedded in normal conversation that our translators initially missed. They've been sharing information about our training methods, our technological capabilities, and our strategic doctrines in real time. The silence that followed was deafening. Representative Kraltek's hand moved instinctively toward his ceremonial weapon. This is clearly an intelligence operation of unprecedented scope and sophistication. Or, Dr. Shendal countered, it's exactly what we would expect from a highly social species with advanced communication skills that we failed to properly assess. Their behavior could be entirely natural for beings with their evolutionary background. Grand Marshal Thysak studied the data with the cold calculation that had made him legendary. The distinction may be irrelevant. Whether through deception or natural capability, we now face the reality that hundreds of humans have been placed within our most sensitive military institutions, have learned our deepest secrets, and possess capabilities that may rival or exceed our own. Chancellor Vextari activated the emergency protocols that had not been used in living memory. I am calling for immediate implementation of Security Protocol 7. All human cadets are to be confined pending comprehensive evaluation. All human civilians in Federation space are to be monitored. All human diplomatic personnel are to be restricted to their embassy compounds. Chancellor, Admiral Corinth said carefully, such actions constitute a de facto declaration that we consider humanity a security threat. The political implications are less important than survival, Admiral. If these humans possess capabilities we don't understand, deployed through methods we failed to detect, then we must assume they represent a potential threat to Federation stability. Dr. Shendal's multiple arms gestured in distress. But what if we're wrong? What if this is simply a misunderstanding based on inadequate initial assessment? Treating an ally as an enemy could create the very threat we're trying to prevent. The Marshal's smile was predatory. Doctor, in intelligence work we prepare for capabilities rather than intentions. Human intentions may be peaceful, but their capabilities are clearly beyond anything we previously understood. We must respond to the capability assessment. As the debate continued, none of the representatives noticed the subtle fluctuation in the chamber's surveillance systems, a fluctuation that would later be attributed to routine maintenance but which actually represented something far more sophisticated. The conversation was being monitored, analyzed, and transmitted to receivers far beyond Federation space. On Earth, in facilities that officially didn't exist, human analysts reviewed the Federation's growing panic with emotions ranging from amusement to concern. The careful deception that had protected humanity for 3 years was beginning to unravel, but not in the way they had expected. Admiral Sarah Chen reviewed the intelligence reports with growing unease. The Federation wasn't just discovering human capabilities, they were fundamentally misunderstanding them. The genetic adaptation theory was particularly troubling because it contained enough truth to be believable, while missing the actual explanation entirely. Humans weren't genetically adapted super soldiers. They were simply the products of a planet that had forced them to become very good at warfare through thousands of years of constant practice. The capabilities the Federation found so shocking were normal for any species that had survived the evolutionary pressures of Earth. The problem was that the Federation's fear was making them dangerous. And humanity was about to discover that being underestimated had been their greatest protection. When that protection disappeared, the galaxy was going to learn what humans were really capable of when they stopped pretending to be harmless. The detention facility on Confederation Prime had been designed to hold the most dangerous criminals in Federation space, but it had never housed 300 confused and increasingly angry human cadets. Sarah Chen sat in her cell, listening to the growing tension in the voices echoing through the corridors, and felt a cold certainty settling in her chest. They had made a mistake, a big one. The Federation's panic response had revealed more about their true nature than years of careful intelligence gathering. By treating human cadets as enemy operatives rather than students, they had shown that their peaceful facade concealed the same territorial aggression that drove most species. They had also triggered something they clearly didn't understand about human psychology. "Chen," called Marcus Williams from the cell across the corridor. His voice carried the steady calm that marked him as one of Admiral Chen's more promising students. "Are you getting the same readings I am?" Sarah closed her eyes and extended her senses, feeling for the subtle environmental cues that human survival instincts had learned to detect. The atmospheric recycling had changed pattern, more oxygen, slightly elevated temperature. The lighting had shifted to frequencies that would enhance alertness. Most tellingly, the sound dampeners had been adjusted to prevent their voices from carrying beyond their immediate area. "They're isolating us and preparing for interrogation," she confirmed quietly. "Standard hostile debriefing protocols, which means they've classified us as enemy combatants rather than students," added Lisa Rodriguez from further down the corridor. Her engineering background had given her insights into the facility's technical systems. "The power consumption patterns suggest they're bringing enhanced security online. Whatever they're planning, they consider us genuinely dangerous." Sarah felt a familiar shift in her mental state, the same cold clarity that had settled over her during the simulation. Around her, she could sense similar changes in her fellow cadets. The Federation had triggered exactly the response mechanisms they found so mysterious and threatening. Under normal circumstances, humans were social, cooperative, relatively peaceful beings who preferred negotiation to conflict. But when threatened, when their survival instincts activated, they became something entirely different. The Federation was about to discover the difference between humanity's public face and their true nature. "Status report," Sarah called softly, using the tone that designated her as senior cadet present. The response came in whispers that wouldn't carry to surveillance equipment, but were clearly audible to human ears trained for tactical communication. 17 facilities, 312 cadets total, all in similar detention. "No communication with Embassy or Earth Command." Williams paused. "But the restriction on diplomatic communication means they've essentially severed formal relations. We're now operating under crisis protocols." Sarah nodded grimly. Crisis protocols meant that Earth Command would assume the worst and respond accordingly. The careful diplomatic balance that had protected both species for 3 years was about to collapse. "Assessment of security measures?" she asked. Rodriguez's voice carried professional evaluation. "Standard Federation detention protocols, designed for individuals with normal physiological capabilities. Energy barriers, surveillance systems, atmospheric controls, not adapted for human flexibility, climbing abilities, or tactical cooperation. Guard patterns, Corthani security teams rotating every 4 hours. They're maintaining standard spacing and movement patterns, professional but predictable." Williams' background in tactical analysis was evident. "They're not expecting coordinated resistance." Sarah felt the pieces falling into place with mathematical precision. The Federation had made the classic mistake of preparing for the enemy they expected, rather than the enemy they faced. They had designed their security around containing individuals with normal capabilities and psychology. They weren't prepared for humans. Time to next rotation? 47 minutes. Sarah closed her eyes and began the mental calculations that had been drilled into her since childhood. 300 humans, scattered across multiple facilities but trained to function as coordinated units. Security designed for individuals rather than team operations. Guards who had never faced human tactical doctrines. The Federation had wanted to know what humans were capable of. They were about to find out. "Pass the word," she said quietly. Synchronized action at next guard rotation. Primary objective is intelligence gathering. We need to know why they've moved against us. Secondary objective is demonstration of capabilities to discourage further aggressive actions. The whispered responses came back with military precision. These weren't panicked students anymore. They were human military cadets who had been threatened and isolated. The transformation was as natural as breathing. Sarah began her own preparations, feeling her body and mind shift into combat mode. Her heart rate slowed, her breathing became more efficient, her awareness expanded to encompass every detail of her environment. Around her, she could sense similar changes in the others as they activated capabilities that the Federation found so inexplicable. They had wanted to study human adaptations under stress. They were about to get a comprehensive demonstration. The irony wasn't lost on her that the Federation's fear of human deception had led them to create exactly the situation they were trying to prevent. By treating humans as enemies, they had activated the very capabilities they found threatening. By isolating military-trained cadets, they had created a coordinated unit operating under combat protocols. 43 minutes until guard rotation. Sarah began timing guard movements, listening to security communication patterns, analyzing atmospheric and system controls for weaknesses. Around her, 300 of humanity's best and brightest were doing the same thing. The Federation had spent 3 years wondering what humans were really capable of. In 43 minutes, they would begin to understand why Earth had survived every catastrophe their violent planet could throw at them. They would learn why humanity had mastered warfare while most species were still discovering agriculture, and they would discover that the greatest mistake any species could make was threatening humans, who had been trained from childhood to turn any environment into a battlefield. The detention facility that had been designed to contain them was about to become a classroom where the Federation would receive their first real education about human nature. Class was almost in session. The coordinated breakout began at exactly 23:47 hours, Galactic Standard Time, across 17 different detention facilities simultaneously. Security Chief Vorthak was reviewing the day's reports when every alarm in the central monitoring station activated at once, creating a cacophony of warnings that his staff had never heard outside of training exercises. Multiple containment breaches, his primary operator reported, voice tight with disbelief. All human detention areas across all facilities. Impossible coordination timing. Vorthak's 4 eyes tracked the security displays as red warning indicators cascaded across every screen. The humans hadn't just escaped their cells. They had done so in perfect synchronization despite being held in facilities separated by light years of space. How? He demanded. Unknown, sir. No communication was detected between facilities. No external signals, no technological assistance. They simply acted simultaneously. The security feed showed scenes that challenged everything Vorthak understood about detention protocols. Humans moved through secured areas like liquid shadow, avoiding guards with precision that suggested complete knowledge of patrol patterns. They disabled surveillance systems using techniques not found in any Federation database. Most disturbing of all, they moved with the coordinated efficiency of a military unit that had trained together for years. Status from Facility 7, another. Operator called out, human. Cadets have secured the armory and communications center. No violence, no injuries to our personnel. They've simply bypassed all our security measures. Facility 12 reports similar situation. Humans are requesting communication with their embassy. They're treating this as a diplomatic rather than military action. Vorthak realized with growing horror that the humans weren't escaping. They were demonstrating. Every move was calculated to show Federation security forces exactly how ineffective their containment measures were while carefully avoiding actions that could be classified as attacks on Federation personnel. Get me Grand Marshal Thysek. Immediately, the Marshal's image appeared within seconds. His expression grim. I'm monitoring the situation, Chief. What's your assessment? Sir, these humans have turned our most secure facilities into educational demonstrations. They've shown us that our security measures are completely inadequate for containing their species, but they've done so without harming a single Federation citizen. This isn't a prison break, it's a message. Into what kind of message? Before Vorthak could answer, every communication system in the facility activated simultaneously. Sarah Chen's face appeared on screens throughout the security center. her expression carrying the cold professionalism that had become terrifyingly familiar. "Grand Marshal Thisik," she said, somehow looking directly at him despite the impossibility of knowing his location. "I am Cadet Sarah Chen, speaking on behalf of the 312 human students currently detained by Federation security forces. We request immediate diplomatic consultation to resolve this misunderstanding." The marshal's voice carried dangerous undertones. "Cadet Chen, you and your associates have just conducted coordinated breaches of 17 maximum security facilities. This is hardly the action of innocent students. With respect, Marshal, we have demonstrated that your facilities cannot contain us while being careful not to harm any Federation personnel in the process. We could have escaped completely but chose instead to request diplomatic discussion. Our actions have been precisely calibrated to minimize harm while making our capabilities clear." Vorthak felt his scales tighten with realization. The humans hadn't just escaped. They had done so in a way that showcased their abilities while maintaining plausible deniability about their intentions. It was a masterpiece of strategic communication. "What are your demands?" the Marshal asked. "We demand nothing, Marshal. We request the restoration of diplomatic status to human personnel and the opportunity to explain the misunderstandings that have led to this situation. We believe the Federation has drawn incorrect conclusions about human nature and capabilities." The Marshal's image flickered as he consulted with others beyond camera range. When he returned, his expression was carefully neutral. "Very well, Cadet Chen. You have 1 hour to present your explanation. But understand that these demonstrations have only reinforced our concerns about human intentions." Sarah's smile was professionally polite and absolutely terrifying. "Marshal, you've been concerned about human deception and hidden capabilities. Allow me to provide complete honesty about what you're dealing with." The image switched to a wider view showing Sarah standing in what appeared to be the command center of the detention facility. Around her, other human cadets worked at control stations with the casual efficiency of beings who found advanced technology intuitively understandable. The truth is that everything you've discovered about human capabilities is accurate. We are capable of physical and mental performance that exceeds your species' parameters. We do possess tactical and strategic abilities that your assessments missed. We have been learning your military secrets while you trained us. The admission sent shockwaves through every Federation facility monitoring the transmission. Sarah continued with relentless honesty. "But you've misunderstood why. Humans aren't a warrior species pretending to be peaceful. We're a survival species that learned warfare because our planet forced us to master it or die. Every capability you find threatening is simply the result of evolutionary pressures that your species never faced." She activated a holographic display showing Earth's history. Ice ages, asteroid impacts, volcanic eruptions, pandemics, and the rise and fall of civilizations. Our planet tried to kill us regularly. We survived by becoming adaptable, resilient, and very good at working together under pressure. What you call military capabilities, we call basic survival skills. Marshal Thasik's voice carried skepticism. "And the deception? The coordinated intelligence gathering?" "There was no coordinated deception, Marshal. Human families prepare their children for dangerous situations because that's how you survive on Earth. Military families do this more intensively, which is why their children perform better in stressful situations. We didn't hide our capabilities. We simply performed at the levels we considered normal when challenged." Sarah paused, letting that sink in. "As for intelligence gathering, Marshal, we're naturally social and curious. We observe, learn, and share information, because that's how humans survive. You interpreted normal human behavior as espionage, because you've never encountered a species with our social learning capabilities." The silence that followed was profound. Finally, the Marshal spoke with careful control. "Cadet Chen, if what you're saying is accurate, then humanity represents a type of intelligence and capability that the Federation has never encountered." "That's correct, Marshal. And that's why we initially presented ourselves as we did. Most species find human adaptability and learning speed threatening. We've learned to downplay our capabilities to avoid triggering defensive responses. But now you're revealing everything." Sarah's expression grew serious. "Because your detention actions forced us to. Marshal, humans respond to threats by becoming everything our enemies fear. By treating us as dangerous, you've activated exactly the capabilities you were worried about. You've created the situation you were trying to prevent." Vorthak realized he was witnessing a fundamental shift in galactic politics. The humans weren't backing down or apologizing. They were explaining why accommodation was the only rational choice. What happens now? The Marshal asked. That depends on the Federation's choice, Marshal. Humans prefer cooperation and peaceful coexistence. We're willing to accept whatever restrictions and monitoring you feel necessary to ensure your comfort with our presence. But understand that we won't accept imprisonment or persecution. The threat was politely delivered but absolutely clear. The humans were offering partnership on terms that acknowledged Federation concerns while making it clear that continued hostility would have consequences, and if the Federation chooses to view humanity as a threat, Sarah's smile was gentle and completely terrifying. Then you'll discover why Earth's children learn survival skills, Marshal. But we sincerely hope that won't be necessary. As the transmission ended, Vorthak realized that the galaxy had changed forever. Humanity had revealed itself not as conquerors or deceivers, but as something perhaps more dangerous, survivors who had mastered every skill necessary to thrive in a hostile universe. The Federation could accept them as partners, or it could discover why no force in Earth's history had ever succeeded in defeating humanity permanently. The choice was theirs, but the consequences of choosing wrongly had just been demonstrated with terrifying clarity.